It is an amazing place.
Right, historic. Speaking of historic, I've got the Nefarious one again. The anti-hero / hero, again, whatever side of the fence that you're on. That's the legendary Mr. Mickey Munday right here at the spot. Oh, yeah. You can't hear it, but you'll hear it on the playback. But to talk about your history with Cocaine Cowboys, to start it off, like, what is your relationship exactly with Billy Corben? Because I just
butt heads all the time.
Right.
He can be a real son of a gun, but I always say this: he is an incredibly talented guy. Mm-hmm. He really is. What he can see through a lens and what he gets people to say when he does an interview, he is really, really good at what he does, and he has become a great, I'll say, South Florida historian.
Right.
Out of doing all the research. And what people don't really talk about is there's 3 guys in rock on tour. There's Billy Corben, Alfred Spellman, and David Siskin. And each one has their little thing that they do. Mm-hmm. Alfred is basically the business guy,
right,
and David is basically the video guy. Yet each one of them can do the other guy's job.
Right.
And they have been friends since high school.
Okay.
And they just work really well together. Mm. And one doesn't really step on the others, and they've been friends so long that they can get mad at one another and still work.
Okay, now before we go any further, is there any question that I can't ask you?
Basically, I can't tell you where the money's buried.
Oh, damn. All right, well, there goes that. There goes the interview, pretty much, ladies and gentlemen.
That's it. Okay, yeah. So I guess I can,
Yeah.
Okay.
But
I do sell maps for $1,
Yeah. There's the hint, now. Maps.
Okay.
Let you know where something's at. Was there any type of apprehension when, Billy or Raconteur approached you? Or how did that set up? Did Billy approach you, or?
Actually, it was John Roberts.
Okay.
They found John Roberts.
Mm-hmm.
I think the original idea of their show was they were going to do it basically around the nightclub that was down in Coconut Grove, because
Mm-hmm.
the Grove was the hot spot. There was no South Beach.
Right.
There was no downtown. It was Coconut Grove.
Mm-hmm.
And the nightclub was called the Mutiny. And one of his friends, Billy or David's friends, said that they knew John Roberts, and John Roberts and I had been featured in several books, Kings of Cocaine, The Man Who Made It Snow, and
Mm-hmm.
other articles where we had been part of whatever somebody wrote. And Billy and them reached out to John, and John and I discussed getting the story out so that maybe there might be some money made into this thing, or at least have a good time out of it.
Right.
And we said yes. So they did the interviews. They didn't interview us together. Some of the things I would have been upset with, because John says a great deal. It's just like Max used to say. He used to say we. We had antennas that come up out of the ground. We had tow trucks. We had safe houses. We had warehouses. We had boat factories. There was no we. I had all that before I met any of them.
Right.
It was all mine.
Uh-huh.
Each one of us had our job. I'm in transportation, and he was in distribution. Now, basically, he never helped me with transportation, but I would help them with distribution, because a lot of things they were doing was so inept, or they were just going. Mm-hmm. And I'd say, well, did you check to see if there's a speed trap down the road? And a lot of times people wouldn't spend money. And I spend another $1,000. You're making so much money. You're going to go blow it on racehorses or something tonight. Let's spend some money. And it ended up making everything work better. They ended up with the right cars because of me, or the right, you might say, security methods. And things worked really, really well, and they could move more and more stuff.
Right.
So John was a really evil guy. Really evil.
Yeah, I've never met the guy, but I kind of get the impression through the camera. But you said you guys bumped heads a lot.
Yeah,
that seems to be a theme with you and other people.
I think when Paramount was originally talking about doing a movie, which they have the rights to do now. Mm-hmm. They bought John Roberts' book. They wanted to make it a buddy movie, because John is really or was, he's no longer with us, incredibly wicked, and I'm exact the opposite. So it's sort of like a Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid kind of thing.
When did he pass?
Pardon?
When did he pass?
It's been almost 2 years now.
Wow.
He had colon and prostate cancer, and I always thought if anybody could beat it would be him because he was so incredibly wicked and tough. He would go have major surgery, and like 6 weeks later, you'd see him, he'd have a six-pack. I mean, I'm not talking about drinking. I'm talking about his. John was one of these people. Yeah, he might have done things.
Right.
I'm talking about like social partying, but he really was into taking care of himself. He boiled chicken and vegetables. He always ate right, took care of himself, exercised, never let himself get out of shape, and same philosophy I have. I took it to the extreme of not doing anything. I believe people can do anything and everything in moderation and it not hurt you. The key word is moderation. The only thing that you shouldn't do in moderation is sex. That you should do all you can.
I agree.
And if it hurts you, it must have been really good. So,
I also agree.
and I want to know that girl if you find one, okay? If she kills you, oh my God,
Yeah, you're in trouble.
But so I was really amazed that he couldn't beat it. He fought it, and he finally succumbed to it. So he was in Vietnam. He actually went back for more than one tour of duty, and he injured himself. He ended up with a plate in his head.
Wow.
He wanted to go back. He liked hurting people.
I can imagine.
So
So he fit
so
right
that
in.
as far as making a movie, you could see where the contrast between the two of us. You might say he got a little softer and I got a little harder on the deal as to watching out. I watched out for him and he watched out for me. So we would butt heads. Never anything really, really tough. Nothing ever physical.
Right. So it wasn't ever really anything really
No,
contentious.
we would agree to disagree, and we would have a disagreement, and the next day it's done, it's over with. Like, what was that all about? Okay, it's done and forgotten.
Would you say the climate of what you guys were dealing with and the atmosphere you guys were in, it kind of pushed you in a position where you would have to like resolve the issue? Like, all right, that wasn't as serious as I thought. Because if you're dealing with people like Pablo Escobar or worse.
Well, the first time I saw Pablo, I told him he was stupid. So I didn't. He was the big head cheese then, but who knew who Pablo Escobar was? Nobody. He was just the big shot, and that's a long story. And he solved the problem that I was discussing. The reason why he did is I was telling them what they were doing. They could have made even more money.
All right.
And we're talking about serious money, like hundreds of millions of dollars. They were already making hundreds of millions of dollars. Why aren't you making more?
All right.
And he solved the problem. So he wasn't stupid.
So all the money that was made, could you really count or have an idea how much money you probably made during that time?
A lot of times you didn't count the money, you counted the stacks. It's supposed to be 100 bills in a stack, so you count the stacks. But you paid big money. People think that you hear the government say, oh, it was $100 million worth of, okay, well, make it sound like they got it for free.
Right.
It cost you money to grow it, money to transport it, money to package it, money to move it, and everybody gets a salary from there. So I'm not saying there wasn't a lot of money made, but it wasn't $100 million.
Right.
So, and there was extreme profit to it. The only thing that never made sense to me in it was the violence. Why would they spend more time trying to steal from one another than to actually make money? You're seeing it now in Mexico. They're squabbling over territory. There's so much money to be made. Why?
Well, I think that's the human element, just guessing, because you deal with the same thing in, the inner cities. You're fighting over territory that you don't own. So I would imagine it's a similar thing.
You're saying it's territory, like you own it, like you have a franchise on it.
Yeah.
Well, if I have a product and you have a product, we're selling the same thing, and we're not undercutting one another's prices, what the heck difference does it make? If you get more and you can sell more, and you're not affecting me in any way, shape, or form. It's like no matter how much they put on the corner, it's always gone.
Well, see, that's the thing I like about your views is similar to mine, where we would like it to be a utopian type of situation. You make your money, you make yours, and I make mine. But
well, I don't see the head of General Motors shooting the head of Fiat Chrysler. Okay, because Chrysler's stepping on General Motors' sale of trucks.
They probably won't be as extreme and
It's
shoot
the
them
same.
in the head.
It's the
but
same amount of money. I mean, you compete
but I
against
can't
them.
sabotage you or steal the layout for your latest model.
Sometimes it's good to have competition.
Well, that's an extreme form of competition.
It makes you do something more. Like right now, Chrysler's got this little car called the Hellcat. Okay. Well, now General Motors and Ford are going to have to step up. They're going to have to come up with something to compete. So I'm giving a car as an analogy.
Right.
Okay. I don't see the guy who built a new condo down in Brickell coming up here and giving, holy hell to the guy that's building a condo in Aventura. Okay. It doesn't make sense. There's a market there, and every one of them they build gets sold.
All right.
Okay.
Well,
you might have ups and downs in the market as
Right.
far as money goes, but like in 2008 when the bottom fell out, all those condos were empty. Well, excuse me, every one of them's full, and now they're building more again. So the market is there.
Oh, they're still empty. They're still empty.
They keep building and building.
Yeah.
So what I'm looking at is there's this huge market for the drugs. When I stepped into it, it was wholesaling for $50,000 to $60,000 in 1980 money,
Right.
which would be like $150,000 to $180,000 in today's money. And there ended up being so much volume here that the price came down to, back then it was wholesaling for $10,000 a kilo, which would be 30 in today's money. So it's still relevant.
Right.
But it got down so cheap that everybody could do it. It wasn't just a rich man's toy. It wasn't, a doctor, attorney, entertainer, radio disc jockey who had the big money,
Disc jockey.
My point being is competition actually helps people, helps the consumer. So you want to have a monopoly on something. Monopolies never work. I mean, especially if you get into things that are illegal. It certainly caused all kinds of troubles during Prohibition. And I would think to new people, if those guys back there were running around with Tommy guns and shooting one another and busting up one another's stills, it didn't raise their sales any at all.
Well, you call yourself the raconteur of history.
Okay, storyteller of history. Okay.
Right. And this is one of the things that I, in doing my research, I pulled where it says Mickey likes to separate himself from the stories of violence, which you just brought up, that punctuated the cartel's operation. He was just the transport guy responsible for getting the goods from point A to B. Was it really viewed that simple? While in the midst of all this stuff, like you just kind of got what you needed, got your barn, and left it at that.
I picked it up in Colombia, and I brought it here to this country. I would give them half. And when I'm saying them, I would give John or Max, whoever was picking it up. The product could belong, say there was 400 kilos, it could belong to as many as 20 different people. That's why they had all these different markers on the packages.
Right.
I only collected from one person. So when I would give it to John, you give him half, and when they would pay me all the money they owe me, then I would give them the other half. And the incentive would be that if they don't pay me, I'm happy because what I'm holding is worth far more than what they owe me. And you don't go again until they pay you. So that I don't want to be holding their product.
Right.
And they don't want to be holding my money. So they didn't pay me in one big lump sum. As they got the money, they would keep until they had their debt paid.
Right.
And then I would turn over what was the balance of what they had. But ideally, my job was I moved the product from the source to the wholesaler, not to the consumer. I didn't buy it. I didn't sell it. I didn't use it. I didn't steal it. It's an easy way to go around business. John and them would give it to the wholesalers, and then they down to wholesalers and retailers. So it would be like any business. You bring the product here, and then whoever you bring it to. So you might say I was the UPS
Right.
of the drug cartel. The only thing that I did do to help people like John is they were running their operations so shaky as far as security were going, even though they thought that they're being, really secure. The vehicles they would use, I improved their transportation. I improved where they would hide